Okay, so you hate putting in hubs and bearings. I get it. But there's a few things you really do need to think about, and that's coming right up. Well, we're at the 2015 APEX show, and we're in the MPA booth. And yep, we're going to talk a little bit about wheel hubs and bearings. I know you guys don't like to put them in all that well. But you know, there's something that we haven't really talked about, and that is proper torquing when we're putting in hubs and bearings. So with me is John Luck, and he's the Director of Merchandising, and he is going to talk to us about the proper torquing that's required when we install hub bearings assemblies, right?
Correct. So one area that we find a lot of installers take shortcuts on is the proper torque specs for the axle nut. So we as a company have decided to put the torque specs right in the box for over 140 of our top selling SKUs. That means 80% of our customers walk out of the door with the torque specs right in the box.
It's pretty fantastic. So you guys don't have to look them up, you don't have to go to manual, don't have to go online, right in the box. So, John, what do you think? Is there a lot of installs on these things where they're not properly torqued, and perhaps people are sending them back as a defect, or they're having a short life or something of the bearing? It kind of seems to be like that would be the biggest problem, right?
Yes, actually that's our number one defect issue is over-torquing of the axle nut. So during the torque down of the axle nut itself, it puts the proper preload on the bearing. Well, if you over-torque that, you're now putting too much load on that bearing and shortening its lifespan. Right.
So, you guys know, and you've probably heard about that sort of thing before, is preloading. And so here again, proper torque specs when you're installing a device like this, hubs, bearings, or anything, is really the most important thing to think about. The rest of it's just all, getting the old one off, getting the new one on, and going through the motions. But stop, take some time, use a torque stick, right?
Use the torque stick, don't use an impact wrench. It's the best way to do it. It's the best way to satisfy your customers and keep them satisfied.
Right. You said a torque stick is okay to use. What do you think about a regular torque wrench as opposed to a torque stick?
Torque wrench is obviously the best way to go. You can dial it down properly and make sure that that is installed properly, and the bearing preload is set correctly for the application.
Right. So I know there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of arguments about, is a torque stick just as good as a torque wrench? And maybe it is, but I think the torque wrench is number one choice.
Absolutely.
Okay, so there you have it. When you're installing the hubs and bearings, do think about the MPA product. There's going to be some torque specs right in there for you. And use that torque wrench, use that torque stick. Don't just bang it in there with the impact wrench, and you're going to have a much, much better install that's going to do the job and last as long as you and your customer think it's going to.